Welcome back, everyone, to Oracle Investment Club, episode 9, Tesla Weekly with Tim and Vin. We got a lot to talk about this week with Tesla's monster Q1 earnings. How you doing today, Tim?
I am doing amazing despite the fact that the market just died again, but
we're both wearing black. That worked out.
yes.
We're mourning the Friday market. It was bloody out there this week. But as far as Tesla Q1, just a quick recap, and then there's plenty of details to get into here. They started off with, despite the numerous supply constraints and interruptions, Shanghai obviously shut down for a good length of time due to COVID. They continued to make progress and managed to achieve the best ever vehicle deliveries quarter. It's just amazing. They continue to blow away expectations. Automotive gross margin reached 32.9%. And for the first time, it was above 30%, excluding the regulatory credits. So I guess Tesla's not going bankrupt from regulatory credits anymore. Delivery times are stretching to 2023 at this point. And a lot of the cars they delivered in Q1 generally were priced, in prior quarters. And so they were sold for a lower amount, whereas their profit margins moving forward now with the price, increases they've had are just going to increase. They reduced their debt to nearly zero and are expecting 50% or above growth rate for the rest of the year. They think it's definitely achievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. And it was crazy because I actually got out of work early so I could watch this. And I'm driving home and 4:05 they released it. And I got home and I'm like, it was a good 10-minute window before the market reacted to this. So I don't know if analysts immediately went right to regulatory credits and saw that. And they're like, well, they got a lot more regulatory credits than they did last time. So, it's not a big deal. And then I think it took them like 10 minutes to finally read into the details of what it actually meant that they pulled off. And then we saw the stock take off.
Definitely. And they gave some good insights on, the initial ramp for the new factories, saying, because we had kind of discussed in recent weeks, what is this rollout going to look like at Berlin and Texas compared to Shanghai? And, Elon kind of touched on it, saying that the ramp always looks small. It's going to start very slow, but it grows exponentially. And they think growing exponentially with them achieving high volume by the end of this year is probably going to be the, most likely scenario. They announced a bunch of other crazy stuff, a new vehicle that's going to be a dedicated Robotaxi that's highly optimized for autonomy. It's not going to have a steering wheel or pedals, and shooting for volume production of that in 2024, cybertruck volume production in 2023. What do you think? Are these timelines being optimistic?
I think that they're good. I think Cybertruck's not going to be a question. I think they're going to get that down. Elon on the call definitely sounded confident about them getting the 4680s to scaling ramp by the end of Q3, if not beginning of Q4. And he did say that if for some reason they don't get scaling in the 4680s by Q1 of 2023, that could be an issue. But he feels like they're going to get there at the end of this Q3 of this year. And with that happening, that means Cybertruck's not going to be a problem. So they'll get the Cybertruck out next year. I think the biggest concern for them is going to be cost of it. Elon had mentioned it before, just with all the awesome stuff they want to put into the Cybertruck, how do they keep the cost of the vehicle down to make it affordable and realistic for people to buy? So I think that'll be the biggest thing. But he did say in the call that, they do intend to not raise prices anymore in the vehicles unless they absolutely have to. And with that, they will also be looking to potentially bring the price of the vehicles down. And so by doing that, bringing it down, that means they could bring the price of the Cybertruck down. So I think we'll probably get pricing information maybe end of Q3 on the Cybertruck. Robotaxi stuff, I was extremely excited about. And it didn't hit me till afterwards, thinking about, yes, this is awesome. 2024, it'll probably end up starting in China. Probably spot areas. Maybe they'll geofence a little bit here in the US and areas that'll allow it. But, when Zach jumped on and he's like, yeah, we're dedicating a lot of our resources to the dedicated Robotaxi, I was like, oh, they have already moved in that direction. They're already dedicating resources to it. That tells me that they are extremely confident that they are going to be solving FSD this year, because otherwise, why would you invest in that for then? So, it's exciting to see this. I don't even have a lot of FSD in my model just because I want to make sure it's going to happen. I know ARC has a significant portion of their model with FSD in it, but now we actually have a time frame. 2024 is when robotaxis will start hitting the streets based on what Tesla said. And that's how I run my base model, is what is Tesla telling us for timelines? That's what I'm going to throw down in my valuation model.
Right. And right there, so many, huge business opportunities, multiple $1 trillion industries. But wait, there's more. I like this quote from Elon. He said, then there's, of course, Optimus, which I was surprised that people did not realize the magnitude of the Optimus robot program. The importance of Optimus will become apparent in coming years. Those who are insightful or listen carefully will understand that Optimus ultimately will be worth more than the car business and worth more than full self-driving. That's my firm belief. Full stop.
Dude, and it's ridiculous, because when you're looking at any numbers that they have thrown out for robotaxis, they're talking about generating $250,000 a year per robotaxi vehicle. So thinking about making it basically, what was it? I think a 5x on their gross margins alone per vehicle when you put robotaxis out there, and Optimus is going to be bigger than that. I mean, like, looking at $1,000 price tag on the stock right now is stupid cheap, because almost every analyst out there, ARC, and I don't know if Gene Munster does, but very, very few analysts have robotaxis or FSD revenue built into their models. Most of them have Tesla doing extremely well over the next 10 years based just on EVs. So anytime we get any new extra news that yes, FSD is truly going to happen, yes, robotaxis are hitting the roads, yes, energy is doing well, and yes, Optimus is going to take over, the stock price is going to jump leaps and bounds every time we get that confirmation of news that comes out.
That's a really good point, that all of these different industries are not even really priced, people aren't even accounting for it. So yeah, like you said, let's say they're going for 5 home runs here and they only really need a hit on 2 or 3 of them to justify, still getting a huge return over the next decade. And then, yeah, just the full self-driving stuff. It was really interesting in the Q&A section. I think someone asked a question about it. And, Elon has explained how, in order to really make full self-driving work, radar, people have tried to do it. You need to solve real world artificial intelligence, which nobody has solved yet, because the whole road system makes sense. It's made for humans, 2 eyes to see everything, and these biological neural nets. So in order to actually solve full self-driving, you need these neural nets, and you need cameras that will act as vision. And, even better than the human, it can be looking in every direction at once. And, Elon thinks that they will achieve this by the end of this year. And it's just crazy to think about.
Oh, I know. And as he said, this is why it's the biggest focus for them, because you do that, and then you've got Optimus, and Optimus is going to basically be running the same thing. It's going to have the same sensors we do as humans, but it'll have better versions of those sensors. So if you're going to solve it for cars, you're also going to be solving it for Optimus. So you might as well just do both. And Optimus's total addressable market is significantly higher than the automotive market. So you might as well do them both at the same time. So that's why, Elon's major focus is FSD, because if they can solve general artificial intelligence, game over.
Yeah. And then as far as, the factory ramps, Elon had said, they want to produce 1.5 million cars this year, would give them that 50% growth rate. And to get to the level where they're producing, let's say 5,000 cars a week in the factory, it's usually taken them about 12 months. So if we just plan out, by Q4, maybe for Berlin and Austin, they're going to be doing, a couple 100,000, I would think, this year. And that's going to add a huge chunk to the bottom line when we think about how, they had the path between just Shanghai and Fremont to get to that 1.5 million car sold mark. So even if you're getting a couple 100,000, let's say, or 100,000, out of Texas and Berlin, and that's it for the year, I mean, that's going to move the needle quite a bit. And also, though, it will have to help offset. Obviously, Shanghai has been closed a significant amount with the COVID.
Yeah. And, and Elon did say last time, looking to get to a run rate of 5,000 to 10,000 vehicles per week coming out of Berlin and Austin by the end of the year. And so we're already in great track. I've seen numbers, they're around 350 a week per now, looking to get to 1,000 a week by the end of the month. So they're on great track, great pace. When it comes to the supply issues, they asked him about, do they think that the supply issues coming out of Shanghai due to the COVID shutdowns are going to cause any issues in all their other factories? So it doesn't seem like it. And knowing Tesla, they probably had enough supplies locked up already to get themselves probably 150 to 2,000 vehicles pumped out of each one of those factories anyway. So they're good on those supplies there. Plus, just as I had anticipated, because of the fact that they were shut down in Shanghai for almost a month, all those supplies just got to build up and stockpile. So they're going to be able to run through those very quickly. And they're getting that ramp back up a lot faster than I thought. I thought it was going to take them about a month to get back up to pace. Seems like they're going to get there a lot sooner back in Shanghai. And it's great because, Elon answered a lot of questions that I had about getting back up to ramp of, are they going to be able to get Shanghai back up to pace to be able to make up the difference? And, telling us that Q2 might be flat, the same as Q1, maybe a little bit lower, but if they pull a rabbit out of their hat, there'll be more. And if they can do that, I think that's going to be huge. And obviously it's a one-time, one-off issue. So then you're going to look at the exponential growth going to the end of the year. I have them producing 530,000 vehicles in Q4. And, just thinking about that's just really with Berlin and Austin really starting to hit their stride, and they can still grow from there. So 2023 is going to be incredible. And I have no doubt they're going to be, announcing at least an expansion or another factory by the end of the year.
Yeah, that was another thing Elon had hinted at, some product announcements coming in the next couple months. And that would be interesting too, if we do get some news on gigafactories. Where do you think they're going to put the next factory?
Man, I don't know. So, they've already, he's very big on logistics, putting factories where it makes the most sense. Austin is obviously going to take care of the majority of the US. So I don't think they're going to go US next. So it's either going to be India, which I have been saying all along, but there's a lot of reasons why India wouldn't happen, just because they don't sell a lot of the bigger vehicles. They would be going into more like an Arcimoto type vehicle there for better sales. So unless those are the vehicles that they're going to be announcing this year, I don't know. I would say probably a second one in China. That would make the most sense to me, is a second factory in China. We kind of heard rumors about it a few months ago. So I think a second factory in China makes the most sense. They'll have the expansion in Shanghai, a second factory in China. That will really take care of that piece. And then they'll probably move another one into Europe at some point in the next year or so. So I think that'll really handle a lot of the logistics for them. So yeah, I would say China, and then Europe would be the next two.
Yeah, I could see that. And India would make a lot of sense. And then, though, I was reading a lot of, you're going to run into a lot of bureaucratic issues and stuff with their government over there as well that might make it less ideal. But yeah, we'll have to see. I am really interested to see where the next one ends up being.
Yeah, Australia's an option. Australia's an option too. They've got the huge stuff going on now there for energy. So that I haven't actually looked to see what the vehicle sales would look like down in Australia and where they are compared to like a Europe or the US. But it makes sense to potentially put one in Australia. I don't know what they have for, tariffs and other sorts of taxes there.
Yeah, and they've been, giving them so much of the solar and battery storage. I know has been making a big difference for Australia just for the last couple of years. They're always installing them and helping with it because they have a huge blackout problem. So I'm sure that they would welcome that. That would be interesting. I'd have to look more into if it would make sense logistically there.
They're literally building the infrastructure that they need in Australia for all the vehicles. Basically, what they want to do in the US. But they're almost kind of doing it from scratch in Australia. So it would make sense over there.
It would be easier if you went infrastructure first and focused on, solar panels on everyone's houses and the battery storage. Yeah, that could actually make it a lot easier and more enticing to them. Speaking of governments, it's funny, they got a question about why is Tesla not appealed to get federal legislation to allow direct sales and finally cut the dealerships once and for all. And they're saying how they haven't seen a willingness on the part of Congress to enact such a law that would override a variety of state laws. So unfortunately, they have to keep fighting on a state-by-state basis why would the government help? It would only offset the sticker price difference, markup for us consumers, could even help people cope with inflation. But interesting, the government's not interested in that.
Oh yeah, and I loved it was 2 points. That was one of them, and the other one where Elon started to talk about inflation and government printing money, and it's like I think it was a combination of the maturity of Elon and the lawyers in the room giving him dirty looks as soon as he started to mention these, because he just cut himself off, and it ended up being a very good professional call because we had Elon on it giving his insights, but without the Elon that Wall Street hates. So I think overall, the call was probably the best call I have heard yet, especially with Elon being on it, because when Elon wasn't on it in Q3, Zach is fine. Zach is good, but he's a shy guy. So it was kind of bland and boring. So Elon gives it that flavor. And so I think this earnings call was great because we got the Elon flavor, but
we got the perfect amount. Yeah, it's like the perfect amount because we got a little bit of Elon, but not too much. That's what so many people criticized with the last quarter report. It's just like the way it's presented. But he did. He was in check this time, and like he didn't take things too far, and he told them what they wanted to hear. I think that came up. Yeah, it was a question about. I think the analyst said he has Tesla. He's projecting that in 2030, Tesla will have $500 billion in free cash flow. And he was like, what are you guys going to do with that money? And I mean, that's just crazy to think about, but they could solve a lot of these problems.
Elon's like, well, if inflation keeps going the way it's going, it might only be worth 20 billion.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. But it is crazy to think about, that really is a possibility. I mean, they're easily going to be in the hundreds of billions of free cash flow and just cash in general, by 2030, I would think. And what are you going to do with all that money? I mean, they could use it to solve all of these issues that they're currently working on.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was actually really nice because I loved how Zach gave the insight on this and literally told us what they're spending their money on. And he said, so we can basically not look for any dividends for the next decade, which we kind of assumed anyway. Probably not much in the way of stock buybacks because they're going to be reinvesting all of this money into the company for growth purposes. And so he literally said, all right, so the things that they have on their radar right now that they're spending money on, obviously ramping up the factories that they're currently at, any new factories that come out, Robotaxis, and then Optimus. So right now, Optimus is currently their end game, just because there hasn't been anything else that popped up. But then you think about the fact that Optimus wasn't even on the radar a year and a half, 2 years ago, because that just popped into Elon's head when he thought about the reality of FSD and artificial general intelligence. So who knows what's going to happen over the next decade that could pop into his head and be like, ooh, this is something else that we can solve, that we can invest our money into also. So, but it's good to see that we know the next decade, they are dedicating their money and resources into these pieces of the company that we all can see the growth trajectory for.
Right. And again, they had a little bit on Tesla insurance. And, this is like the forgotten fifth path here that they can stand to make a lot of money. And it was really interesting. They're saying they're already the second largest insurer of Teslas in Texas. And possibly by the end of the quarter here, they'll be the largest insurer of Teslas, and that the customer reception to this has been unbelievably positive. People are saving substantial amounts of money. And funny enough, like it had other probably unintended benefits, that having this real-time feedback, because the way the Tesla insurance works, they have the data, they see how you're driving, how hard you're braking, there's a lot of factors they can take in. And they said that having that real-time feedback for driving habits is actually resulting in Tesla owners driving the cars in a safer way because they can see that their actions are affecting their insurance rate. So they don't want to pay more money. So there's like another net positive. Without even having full self-driving, you could probably make the argument this is already going to save lives because it's reducing people's insurance. People have the incentive to drive safer, to not pay as much money every month for insurance.
Yeah, so not only is FSD going to save lives, Tesla insurance is going to save lives. So you're going to save money. If you do have an accident, you're going to save a ton of time because you're not going to be spending all this time going through third parties and dealerships and all that garbage. And you're going to be saving lives because you're going to be driving safer. I mentioned it on my video, at my brother's wedding, I got bullet holes in my car, I got shot, whatever. I had to deal with the hotel and then going from the hotel's insurance company through my insurance company, then working with the dealership to try and work. It took a full month for me to finally get my insurance money. And I'm like, with Tesla, it could cut it down to like a week because they get the information, they get it all done, they come out and they have their own collision centers. So they're going to repair it for you. So there's only one company you have to deal with if you get into an accident when you've got Tesla and Tesla insurance.
That's another great point, and I think they touched on that as well. Yeah, because normally, if you get in a collision, you have to go through the collision people. You got to go through the dealership. You have to make sure the insurance company is going to, pay however much it's going to cost, and it can just be a nightmare. And Tesla wants to make it into a dream, scenario. And they also said that they want to get it to 80% of customers, the insurance product, by the end of this year in the US. So that would be really interesting to see how far they do get it. But just another way to make the consumer's life better and more money to their bottom line.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it from the consumer standpoint. You can spend less money for a significantly better product. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And this is exactly where we're going with EVs in the future as well, is you're going to be able to spend less money on an EV for a better product than an ICE vehicle. And that's exactly the direction that we're going. And we're going to see that within the next 2 to 3 years.
There was another part they were talking about, something with the way they're building the cars, and it being able, they're able to do it basically in a space that's like 60% the size of what the old body shop used to be, with how they're doing the front and rear casting and the structural pack and everything. And it just had me thinking too, like, here's the example of the continuous improvement that's ingrained in their culture. They're constantly becoming more efficient at building these cars, less factory space, cheaper, faster. And again, it just shows you, other competitors are striving to get to where they are today, like Ford and GM, but they're going to have way better, more efficient production operations in place. And it just improves every year here.
Oh, yeah. And they've got 30% less robots in Berlin and Austin than they even have in Shanghai. And so, they said that every time they open up a new factory, it will be the best factory. Just like they also said on the call that every time they produce another Tesla, it's the best Tesla because they're constantly improving. It's not like legacy auto where they have model year vehicles and they say, this is our template for the year, that's it. Tesla's more of, oh, you know what? We realized today that we can improve this vehicle. So from that moment on, the vehicles are all going to be better. And that's just how they work. And say, let's say they're running through Berlin and Berlin's like, ooh, we can do this better. And they're like, all right, pass the word to Shanghai, Fremont, Austin, good, done. And they start improving them across the board. And I was actually having a conversation with one of my subscribers, and we're like, all right, so they've got the dedicated Robotaxi coming out, but what about a compact car, something that's more affordable? And yes, inflation has gone up. So, the 25,000 is probably closer to maybe a $30,000 vehicle. But if you're really going to hit the masses, you need to have that. And they didn't announce it. I still know of rumors that they're working on it in Shanghai. But one of my subscribers brought up a great point of, well, if they continue to bring the costs of all the vehicles down, if they continue to get more and more efficient, then the law of large numbers and, the scaling creates a better margin. Maybe the Model 3 ends up becoming that cheaper car. Thinking about the cost of vehicles sold in this quarter was about $36,000. I don't know what the specific cost of the Model 3 is, but let's say obviously it's going to be lower. Let's say it's $34,000. So you bring that down, you've got $34,000 for that vehicle to be made. It doesn't take much, especially considering supply costs are so high right now. When those come down and they become more efficient and they put the 4680s in there, you might be looking at $20,000 to $25,000 for a cost on a vehicle. So if you start pumping them out for $30,000, you're still looking at a 25 to 30% gross margin, even on your low end vehicles.
That's a great point. And so they might not even need to really worry about other models. They can just keep making the current ones cheaper. And that's already the plan, I know. And they, discussed on the call as well, that even though in the short term they had to increase prices just because of the increased costs in commodities and everything's more expensive, obviously, with inflation for them. So it gets passed on to the consumer. But over time, that is the goal, to decrease the price, not increase it, make it where it's affordable for everyone. And another thing that was interesting, I know we've gone ARC's projections before, but it was interesting to hear directly from Tesla when they started looking at their projections. It would appear for robotaxis, that a Robotaxi ride would cost less than a bus ticket, a subsidized bus ticket, or a subsidized subway ticket. And this is just something that, I think we've mentioned in the past, that this could revolutionize transportation beyond cars. I mean, everything stands to be, disrupted here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm literally like envisioning in my head, and I know we saw it at GM's a little show that they had, but almost like a bubble vehicle, like a minibus almost. We probably have 6 to 8 seats in the thing, but it's sliding doors open up, you get in, and everybody's sitting there, maybe facing each other or whatever. It's basically like a mini bus with no pedals, no steering wheel. You're just going to get in and you're going to go. So it's like you're going to go on your phone onto an app, and you're going to be like, oop, let me call my Uber, your Robotaxi, and it's going to pull up and you tell it where you want to go, and then it goes to your route. And I have no doubt this is exactly how it's going to play out. And you're literally going to be able to summon a Robotaxi from your phone on an app and just have it come up. You're not going to have to wave down a taxi driver or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I know taxis are so mad at Ubers right now, but when you get Robotaxis out there, it's going to basically wipe them off the map. I mean, you're not going to want to get into this nasty taxi cab in the middle of New York City when you can get into a nice Robotaxi without having to talk to a driver, because so many people are introverted and just don't want to talk to anybody in their car.
I mean, yeah, especially in just moving forward with each generation here is definitely fast tracking that trend. I mean, that's another great point. And not to mention just the cost savings. I mean, there's just no way a human can compete with a robot, eventually on driving ability too. And just it'll save so much in costs. So that whole thing is a whole other, that revenue opportunity could blow the cars away. I mean, can't even quantify that really. And that just kind of brings me back to, the guy who had suggested that they're going to have $500 billion. I think it was of cash. Let's say 500 billions of cash by the end of the decade. What are they going to do with it? Mass scale probably, and robots. I mean, it's going to cost a lot of money to build all this stuff. But once we do, I mean, you're going to be able to fast track just like how fast civilization is advancing. We've never had anything comparable.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you think about, right now there's, 7.5 billion people in the world. Even if you replace, let's say 10% of that, and you have 700 million jobs that are getting replaced by robots, that's 700 million Optimuses out there. That's a lot. And that's just replacing jobs. That doesn't even include the ones that people would have in their homes, helping them out with things around the house. So I can't remember who it was, and I don't know if it was on a call. Maybe it was the Lex Friedman interview when he was talking to him, talking about, you having like 100 million Optimuses out there. And Elon's like, well, yeah, it could totally happen. I mean, like 100 million. Wow. That's a lot. I mean,
that leads us to it's the full Mars colonization stack: rockets, cars, the cybertruck, adapt that to drive on the surface of Mars, and robots doing all the work. I mean, he's got it all figured out. I think maybe this will all be in Master Plan Part 3, where what happened. It's taken a while. It's going to be the craziest one, probably this one.
I say I'm looking forward to getting that and seeing what his master plan, because we know a lot of it's going to be scaling, but it's got to be scaling of Robotaxis, Optimus, and I think because, and I know Kevin had mentioned it too, I figured they were going to be pumping out a factory probably one every 9 months or so for the next 10 years. I think they're going to front load it. I think right now, because they have the cash flow going the way they do, they're basically debt free. And I have no doubt that they've probably already invested some money into future factories, knowing that interest rates are going up. They probably got some great deals on stuff with low interest rates. So I have no doubt we are going to see probably 4 to 5 factories pop up in the next 3 years, and maybe a couple more trickling on down the road. But I think we're going to get a lot of front-loaded factories to get up and running. Because think about the competition. Maybe they have 1 or 2 factories coming up right now, and by the time they actually get built and actually get to scale, it'll be 2025. And in 2025, Tesla's going to have 5 or 6 factories already at full ramp scale. So good luck catching them.
That's a great point. And that brings them, they'll have by that point, let's say 8 to 10 factories. So even if each factory on average is putting out 1 million vehicles, there's the 10 million right there, and that might be all they need. I mean, that's probably like the baseline we're setting here. If they did add, that many factories and continue at the current pace here, it's probably going to be more than that. But we'll have to see. Was there anything else you wanted to get to today?
Well, I'll check through my notes quick, but and that brings me to looking at, and I know a lot of my subscribers, a lot of people are concerned about like recession potentially coming, and how is Tesla going to handle the recession? Well, they're basically debt free. So as far as the company goes, won't be an issue. Stock price, obviously, during a recession is going to take a hit. Great buying opportunity for the rest of us. But what's really going to happen is Tesla's going to win regardless. Tesla coming, if we don't get a recession, Tesla already laid out a game plan that's going to crush the competition. If we do get a recession, Tesla could potentially come out even stronger, because that recession could bury some of the competition sooner. Some of the startups, if they don't have the capital coming in, could be gone. I think if we do get a recession, that's where we might end up seeing like a GM decides to partner with Rivian or something of that nature. And two companies maybe end up having to merge in order to survive. And we're already seeing it with GM and Honda going on. So yeah, looking through that, there's
that's a great point. And Ford comes to mind. They have $138 billion of debt. So that's going to be fun to deal with when the rates are rising. And if we do have a recession, it's like you said, they'll come out of it, stronger than anybody else. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking at. So I think Tesla obviously is going to be a great play for anybody going forward. And if we get the recession, it's going to stink. It's going to stink for a lot of people. Recessions are never good, but coming out of that recession, watch out for Tesla, because they'll be even stronger than if they don't.
Right. Yeah. And the stock will take a hit, but the business itself with no debt, they will come out very strongly from that, you would think. And I just got to pull up the Super Bowl effect here.
Yeah.
This is amazing from the Tesla report. Day after the Super Bowl, after all these other EV companies, or EV, I'll put that in quotes, automobile companies had their Super Bowl glory and paid billions and billions of dollars for 30 seconds of ads. What happened? Tesla's scale skyrocketed, and everyone else's, I don't think they went anywhere.
And it's crazy because, pay no money in ads, but they get all the free revenue anyway. And this is something I talk about all the time is, when all these other companies are pushing for EVs and they're like, oh, competition is coming. Like, I don't think you understand that the competition is actually a good thing, because that's going to reinforce faster EV adoption. The faster we get EV adoption, the more Tesla is going to grow, because they already have the lead. And, Tesla's already production constrained, as Elon had said. So, produce. That is the only focus, is produce. Mass scaling is what their focus is, to be able to get ahead of this demand, because the more people who create EVs, the more demand there's going to be for EVs. And we saw that with the Super Bowl ad.
Right. And people forget, yes, like you said, EV competition is great. EVs have 1% market penetration right now. We sell 70 million cars a year, or more, 80 million. Who's selling the majority of them right now? And look at where the competitors stand, which I guess a quick plug for, people for next week. Let us know what questions you want us to answer, maybe, or what topics we should get into. But that's just one that really comes to mind with the competition. I mean, they have to transition, in the case of Legacy, from all these ICE vehicles. They're working against themselves. I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult to pull off.
Yeah. And that's truly the real question for the next 10 years is, when the automotive market becomes the EV market, who is going to have the most vehicles? And where are all these other players going to fall on that chart? And they're not going to fall in the same places they are right now.
Right. Because Tesla's got it figured out. They can just continue to, rinse and repeat. They have the recipe here. They know how to get these gigafactories done efficiently and just pumping out cars. And that's just whoever can do that the quickest will get the majority of the market share. I think it's pretty simple. And, no one else has really shown that they're capable of that yet on a mass scale.
Yeah.
I think that that's all I had. Do you want to talk about anything else?
No, I think that's good. We covered definitely a lot tonight. So we'll let that sink in.
Another exciting week. Welcome to 2022. Elon Musk and Tesla making science fiction a reality, one day at a
headwinds
time.
into tailwinds.
Pulling miracles constantly. Yeah. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.